it needs to be said. I can relate to that young lady, and I felt for her.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it's like to be hated. I know what it's like to be a black woman and hated because of my color.
Caitlin's game that night against the Mercury player Alyssa Thomas lodged her fist into Caitlin's neck in a play where no foul was called during the game.
She uses her body.
Imagine one of basketball's living legends watching a young superstar get roughed up on the court. That's exactly what happened, and Cheryl Miller's blunt reaction to how Alyssa Thomas played against Caitlin Clark has the whole basketball world talking. Have you ever watched a pro athlete get treated unfairly, over and over, just for being great at what they do? That's the situation Caitlin Clark keeps finding herself in. After watching the Phoenix Mercury game, Cheryl Miller's opinion of the WNBA shifted, and Alyssa Thomas isn't thrilled about what Miller had to say either. There's something fitting about it too. Clark is standing right where Miller once stood herself. Back in the early 1980s, Miller was the best player on the floor almost every night, and opponents who couldn't match her skill often resorted to rough physical play instead. But Miller made an important distinction, saying what she saw happen to Clark was different from anything she went through in her own playing days. Her exact words? It was the most gutless thing she'd seen on a basketball court in decades, and that's not an exaggeration. She meant every word.
Seems to be something involving this girl, and there's an elevated level of physicality that obviously compromised her availability last season where she missed a few games. There is a palpable resentment towards this girl, where you have people who are resenting of her star power and her cachet, and as a result, if they have an opportunity to go at her, they're going to take it. Now, Caitlin Clark is no innocent.
The moment Cheryl Miller saw the footage of Alyssa Thomas shoving Clark from behind, while Clark was already dealing with an eye injury, her response was quick and pointed. Miller knew real competitive fire better than most, having gone up against some of the fiercest opponents of her era, yet even she felt that Thomas had stepped outside the bounds of fair, honest competition. What really stood out was Miller's take on the timing of that hit. Word of her comments has reportedly left Thomas rattled. Quick note before continuing, if you haven't already, hit like and subscribe. Now, back to the story. Miller said out loud what a lot of fans had already been thinking, but few with her level of credibility had dared to voice. Striking someone when they're defenseless and not even facing you isn't tough defense, it's something else entirely. Miller reminded people that her playing days were considered one of the most physically demanding periods women's basketball has ever seen. But back then, if a player had beef with someone, they settled it face-to-face, not by catching them off guard. That's exactly what didn't sit right with Miller about Thomas's move. Her comments have already started to shift public opinion against Thomas. What angered the basketball legend even more was Thomas's weak response after the incident. Rather than admitting she may have crossed a line or showing any remorse, Thomas instead claimed she was being unfairly attacked by fans and the media. "Damned if I do, damned if I don't," she said. Hearing that only made Miller angrier. Miller believes real champions own their mistakes, especially when their actions put another athlete at risk. Watching Thomas play the victim instead of taking responsibility reminded her of players who, deep down, know they can't keep up at the highest level, so they turn to shady tactics instead of honest competition. In other words, Miller suggested Thomas doesn't have the raw talent to match her reputation, and leans on unfair play to make up the difference. At the same time, Miller had nothing but praise when breaking down what makes Clark so good. She said Clark has the same qualities found in the game's all-time greats: sharp basketball instincts, jaw-dropping clutch shooting, and a natural ability to elevate everyone around her. But Miller also raised a real concern. Instead of focusing purely on her game, this talented young player now has to stay alert for cheap shots and dirty plays. According to Miller, what Thomas did says a lot about players who'd rather target Clark than actually outwork or outplay her. "It's disturbing," she said, "that Clark keeps getting hit during her most exposed moments." Miller called it the worst display of poor sportsmanship she's ever seen in basketball. Unsurprisingly, her comments sparked heated debate across the basketball world. Miller compared Clark's current struggles to what she herself dealt with as a player, but was quick to point out what makes Clark's situation different. At just 22, Miller noted, Clark is already carrying more pressure than most players face in their entire careers, all while being seen as the face of women's basketball. One line from Miller about Thomas's future in the league really caught fire online. She argued that if the WNBA keeps letting players go after stars without facing real consequences, it sends the wrong message that average players can lean on dirty tactics instead of actually developing their game. She warned this could discourage the very players pushing the league forward. Miller went further, saying that failing to punish this kind of behavior sets a bad example for young fans watching at home, who should be learning about skill, effort, and respect for the game, not how to unfairly target weaker opponents. But the most striking part of Miller's comments was what she predicted for Clark's future. Despite everything working against her, Miller said adversity has only made Clark stronger. Every dirty play, every cheap shot, every attempt to intimidate her just adds fuel to her drive to prove herself through pure talent. Miller compared it to her own rookie year, when she constantly faced physical tests from opponents. But she noted one big difference: Clark is handling all of this while also carrying an unmatched level of media attention and pressure, as the most recognizable name in WNBA history. That's exactly why Miller's support means so much. She isn't just standing up for one player, she's standing up for the spirit of the game itself. To Miller, Clark represents everything great about basketball: skill, vision, class, and heart. And in players like Thomas, she sees the very things that threaten to damage it. Miller made it clear the WNBA is at a crossroads. The league can either keep letting weaker players rely on unfair tactics to stay relevant, or it can protect its top talent and let players like Clark showcase their full ability, lifting the entire league in the process. Her message was simple: the WNBA's future depends on which path it chooses. And that's the big question now: will the league take Miller's advice and protect Clark, or will it keep allowing players like Thomas to hurt its image? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Cheryl Miller was too harsh on Alyssa Thomas, or are her concerns completely fair? And do you think the WNBA will eventually step in to protect its biggest star? Drop your take below, I read every comment. If you want more breakdowns like this that get straight to what's really happening in basketball, subscribe and turn on notifications. Cheryl Miller's bold comments could end up shaping how this whole situation plays out for Caitlin Clark, and the basketball world is watching closely. One thing is becoming impossible to ignore: this isn't just about one game or one rough play anymore. It's about the future of women's basketball, the standards the league wants to hold itself to, and how its biggest stars get treated in the spotlight. Even before joining the WNBA, Clark carried expectations few athletes ever face. Millions watch her play every single game. Her every move gets analyzed. Every win is celebrated, every mistake becomes a headline. That's simply the reality of being one of the most recognizable names in basketball today. At the same time, veteran players across the league keep competing at a high level, bringing experience, grit, and pride to every game. The WNBA's job is making sure intense competition never turns into dangerous play. Fans want energy, rivalries, and real basketball, but they also want fairness, safety, and respect. Since Miller knows exactly what it's like to compete under intense pressure, her comments have sparked real debate. She faced some of the toughest defenders the sport has ever seen during her career. But her point here isn't really about toughness, it's about protecting the game's integrity and keeping skill, not controversy, at the center of the conversation. There's no question Miller's remarks have stirred things up, whether people agree with her fully or think the reaction has gone too far. How the league should handle physical play against its top stars is still a hot topic among fans, analysts, and former players. Should refs be stricter? Should penalties be tougher? Or is this just part of pro basketball? Opinions are all over the place. What isn't up for debate is how Clark has responded. She stayed focused on her game, refusing to let controversy or criticism define her. She keeps showing up, competing, and proving why so many see her as the future of the sport, and that resilience keeps growing her fan base. Meanwhile, the WNBA is seeing attention like never before: rising TV ratings, packed arenas, non-stop social media buzz, and new fans discovering the league every day. Moments like this don't just affect one player or team, they shape how the whole league is seen. As the season goes on, every game will matter more. Every move Clark makes will be watched. Every hard foul will be picked apart. Every call will be debated. Each game adds another chapter to what's already one of the most talked about seasons in WNBA history. So here's a question for you: do you think Miller's comments really capture what's happening in the league? Is the WNBA doing enough to protect its players while still keeping the game competitive? And how do you think this situation affects Clark, Thomas, and the league going forward? Drop your thoughts below. I genuinely love to hear what fans think, and your comment might even show up in a future video. Respectful conversation is what makes this community great. If you enjoy this kind of basketball coverage and want more updates on the WNBA, NBA legends, and Caitlin Clark, subscribe and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching. Every night, another chapter of basketball history gets written. Stay tuned, because what's next might be even bigger. See you in the next video.